the Batavia Board of Education for February 26th is now in order. Would you call the roll, Kathy, please?
Roberts. Hodge.
Here.
Hinterlong.
Here.
Dremel. Here. Blakely. Here. Gopura. Link.
Let's stand for the pledge, and Ms. Blakely, if you please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognition of visitors, and we're going to,
Mr. Collins, there we
Mr.
go.
Collins, Ben Collins is going to do that for the BHS All-Star Music. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here with you tonight to praise the work of our fine Batavia High School musicians and their remarkable teachers, many of whom are just behind me. Each year, the Illinois Music Educators Association holds its annual conference in beautiful Peoria, Illinois. The conference draws around 10,000 music teachers from all over the state in areas ranging from collegiate music to kindergarten Kodai and Suzuki programs. Students may audition in September in one of the 9 state districts to be selected for the district band, choir, orchestra. This is basically the equivalent of any kind of athletic all-area or all-region team. We reside in District 9, which is the smallest geographically, but considered the most competitive. Batavia has always been fortunate to send students to the district festival in all 3 areas. The top performers from each district then move on to one of the 2 all-state ensembles. In a moment, you'll hear about the 4 all-state musicians from Batavia by their teachers. I also wanted to bring to your attention the amazing work of our chamber orchestra, of which you have the program of their presentation in front of you, and their director, Mrs. Mara Brown. Groups can audition to perform at the conference. This is a big deal. Less than 10% of the music programs around the state have ever been selected. We made it. It's considered a major honor to play in a room full of music teachers and to put your students' work on full display. I've heard Batavia orchestras since my freshman year at BHS in 1997. And I can say their performance at the All-State Convention was the finest I have ever heard Batavia string students perform. It was absolutely incredible. The students were remarkable, the performance was moving, and the soloists displayed a maturity and passion rarely seen in high school students. I want to commend them for their hard work and professionalism. I also want to congratulate their teacher, Mara Brown, who has done an incredible job in building an exceptional orchestra program, directing it with vision, and giving students experiences they will never forget. I have the honor of watching her teach throughout the year, and I always walk out of her classroom blown away from the great work being done with the kids of Batavia. I also want to commend one of our new band directors, Mr. Chris Owen, on giving a presentation on beginning an AP music theory class at that same conference. I knew it was going to be successful when his joke about Law and Order Special Modulations Unit brought a roaring laugh from the audience, and I'm glad that some of you got that joke. His session was completely full, which is impressive for an 8 a.m. conference slot, and he represented the school district in the best way possible, with dignity and with grace. Many people stayed after to ask questions about how they might better serve their students with the addition of an AP Music Theory class in their school. And now a brief word about our all-state musicians.
My name is Mara Brown, and I teach orchestra over at the high school. And I'd like to introduce to you the 3 musicians from the orchestra program at BHS that participated this year in the all-state orchestras down at the conference in January. The first student is Natalie Delcourt, and she's a sophomore.
Natalie, you want to come on
down
here so we can get you on camera?
Natalie is really involved in the BHS program. She's been in chamber orchestra for the last 2 years. That's an extracurricular group, the group that played downstate, and is in our Philharmonic Orchestra. Outside of school, she takes part in the Elgin Youth Symphony orchestras, has played leadership roles in those orchestras. This is her first year in IMEA districts, but also her first year in All-State, and she qualified for the Honors Orchestra, the higher of the 2 groups, as a sophomore. So that's a great achievement. Congratulations, Natalie. Geich is also a sophomore, and she's a violist. Natalie's a violist as well. Why'd you stand up there, Natalie? Hallie is also in the Elgin Youth Symphony Orchestra, and she actually is principal in that group. She takes part in. Stay up there, Natalie. There you go.
Side by side.
There you go.
Now turn towards the audience a little bit more for pictures.
Hallie takes part in the Mod Pal String Quartet, which is a select group from the Elgin Youth Symphony Orchestra ranks. And this is her second year in IMEA districts and her first year as a sophomore in All-State. And she also qualified for the Honors Orchestra, which is a tremendous honor. So congratulations, Hallie. And finally, from orchestra, we have Rachel Miller. And Rachel is a violinist. She's a senior. She has been in our Philharmonic and chamber orchestras throughout her years. Third year in chamber, right? Fourth year in Phil. She's been in IMEA District Orchestra all 4 years, which is incredible, and has been in All-State Orchestra for 3 out of 4, which is the maximum you can reach as an orchestra student. And she's been in the Honors Orchestra all 3 of those years. She's also really actively involved in the Elgin Youth Symphony Orchestra as well. So congratulations.
My name is Anna Mudrock, and I'm one of the new band directors here at Batavia High School. I'd like to acknowledge Connor Frederick as an outstanding senior musician at BHS. The past 4 years, Connor has done an exceptional amount of musical activities and honors, including being a part of the Wind Symphony, which is the top band at Batavia High School, for 4 years, the Philharmonic Orchestra for all 4 years, the Chamber Singers for 3 years, Jazz Ensemble, which is the top jazz group, for 4 years, Fox Valley Concert Band for 2 years, the Elgin Youth Symphony Orchestra for 3 years, I'm not done yet, the Elgin Community College Youth Big Band for 5 years, and the Merit School of Music for 1 year. Additionally, Connor has participated in the IMEA District Band Festival for all 4 years, which is the maximum amount that he can participate at the high school level, 2 of which he has been the top trombone player in the state of Illinois. We are privileged to teach talented students like Connor Frederick and very proud of these achievements. Congratulations, Connor. Lastly, I would like to extend an invitation to all of you to attend our Batavia inaugural Fine Arts Festival on March 8th and March 9th. This festival will showcase our visual art, media, and music students, in addition to honoring Mr. Greg Romanek as our new Patron of the Arts recipient for his continued support and contribution to the fine arts. Thank you so much for your support.
Congratulations to all of you. Thank you for the work that you've done and the honors that you brought to Batavia High School and the community. We appreciate the work that you've done. And thank you, educators, for providing these people with skills and things to carry on. Next item on the agenda is items for removal, add, or change. Dr. Barsham.
We will be adding the finance minutes, which were handed to you this evening, to item 7A from January 22nd. Also, we've provided revisions for the handouts for item 7H. Those were policies that they are in front of you for 530, hiring and nepotism, and policy section 6, number 290, homework. And lastly, in the consent agenda, item B, personnel, item 4 will be deleted.
Okay.
We'll do those as we go along.
Okay.
Okay?
You
All
can
right.
advance.
Representatives, Sherry Potlis from Vespa. Are you wish to address the board? Okay. Tony Mullane, PEA president.
Thank you, Jack. Just a few things here. I think last time I mentioned Howard Miller had set up a standing meeting with our local legislators, and we met our first time earlier this month. It was very productive at Senator Oberweis's office, and we will continue to meet quarterly with them. We had Representative Fortner was there, Representative Hatcher, Senator Oberweis, Senator Holmes, and Representative Chapelivia. So it was well attended, and we had very good discussion and have opened those lines of communication to deal with all education issues and build those relationships so when issues come up, they're more than welcome and they know they can call us to get our input. I'd also, our senator to the south, who was also there, Senator Holmes, has recently introduced legislation for pensions. The We Are One Coalition is supporting Senate Bill 2404, which we believe would be a appropriate solution to the problems that the pensions are under. The next thing, next Tuesday, the BEA Executive Board will be hosting a candidate forum for the candidates for school board. All 7 candidates have been invited to attend, and we will follow a democratic process to possibly endorse any candidates.
Is that an open meeting, Tony, or just?
No, it's for executive board.
Okay.
It's not an open meeting. And finally, I'd like to share with you a proposal that Amy and I have been working on with the association. And at our last meeting, our February meeting, we got approval from our executive board to move forward. What we are planning on doing is having some of our own members become qualified evaluators as a resource for our members in the evaluation process. The association is going to be fully funding this. We'll be paying for the training, the certification, and a stipend for those members to become qualified evaluators to work alongside with our members as a resource with the intention of making sure our professional appraisal system remains the tool that we started it to be, as a tool for continuous improvement. We intend on having 18 of our members become qualified evaluators and operate as resources for the rest of our members. That's all I have for tonight. I would just like to say, you may see me step out early here. I'm not feeling so good tonight, and end of the trimester, being sick is not an option right now. So,
Thank you, Tony. Is there any PTO representative that wishes to address the board? Anybody from the Batavia Foundation for Educational Excellence wish to address the board? Is there any visitor that wishes to address the board? If you do so, we need you to fill out a card from our recording secretary, Kathy over here. She'll give you a card, put your name and address on there, and then you can address the board. Anybody that wishes to address the board? If you just step up to the podium, please.
Yes, thank you.
Just state your name and where you live, and
I am Jody Poufant. You want my address?
yes,
1025 Knox Lane in Batavia.
thank you.
Members of the Board of Education, Mr. Barshinger, and administration who's here, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of many J.B. Nelson parents regarding the critical and immediate need for flexible window coverings on the west-facing classrooms at J.B. Nelson. First, I'd like to let you know that, as one parent so eloquently stated, more parents would like to be at this meeting. However, their family needs and commitments do not allow them to be present, and that their absence simply doesn't imply apathy, yet interest. I received Mr. Barshinger's reply to our request for the Board of Education and Administration to seriously consider the immediate critical need for flexible window coverings at JBN. And we understand that the administration will have a recommendation to the board by the March or April meeting, and we really thank you. Mr. Pat Brown informed the PTO last month that JBN has indeed been on hold for replacement and updates for the past 3 years due to the consideration for a possible rebuild. And that, in fact, now that we know that JB Nelson will not be rebuilt, it will rather be updated. Moving forward, while we know that the district has many buildings to maintain, we want to state our opinion that, considering the age of JBN's building compared to those in the district, it is the due diligence of the administration and board to allocate a larger portion of the budget towards JBN's interior needs as well as the exterior. We want to emphasize the critical needs of the interior building, and specifically the classrooms. The children are learning in their environment for 30 hours per week, and the classroom needs to provide them an environment where learning is optimized. As you know, with the introduction of technology into the classroom, the needs for comfort and climate control are heightened. This translates into the need for flexibility for the classroom lighting, including electrical lighting and natural daylight. Flexibility of natural daylight can only be achieved with flexible window coverings. We are extremely concerned that money has hastily been spent on window tinting for the east and south facing classrooms. We are also extremely concerned that the scope of the project was perhaps not adequately researched and investigated. And we are very concerned that the problem of unwanted glare still persists even with the window tinting. The due diligence of the public school district administration and board to responsibly spend the money obtained from the taxpayers for the maintenance improvement of the public school buildings is imperative and cannot be understated. Mr. Brown informed the PTO that he was done with the window tinting, his money was exceeded, and that he was asking the PTO to fund $11,000 to finish the project. The $11,000 is exactly half of the yearly PTO budget. Looking at the Rosalie Jones building, for example, there are blinds on the west, south, and east facing windows, which enables the amount of light entering the room to be manipulated by its users. Likewise, I'm certain in all of your homes, your west, south, and east facing windows have flexible window coverings on them to allow for the flexibility of lighting. Shouldn't the J.B. Nelson windows in the classrooms also have flexible window coverings to allow the teachers to control the lighting in the classroom to meet the learning needs of the students? Window tinting just does not allow for this level of flexibility. Finally, the JBN parents want to emphasize to the administration and board that the purpose of the PTO is to provide educational enrichment to the students at JBN, as indicated by our bylaws. As stated in our letter, we have not been able to provide seemingly necessary educational enrichment opportunities for the past 5 years due to the technology needs that the PTO assisted the district with the purchase of for each classroom. We raise money through volunteerism and parental stewardship each year to maintain a budget of $22,000. Some of the budgeted money is allocated for educational assemblies to reduce the cost of field trips and to add books to the LRC, to name a few. We want to provide our children with educational enrichment, for example, additional educational enrichment, for example, technology updates, additional playground equipment, and perhaps even after-school educational clubs. Frankly, the request for the JBN to purchase window tinting is unwarranted and extreme for the PTO. We would the administration, for example, request the Batavia Foundation for Educational Excellence to pay for window tinting for the Rosalie Jones building. The purpose of these two nonprofit organizations is exactly the same. It's to provide educational enrichment to the students. We are looking forward to the administration's decision to provide adequate and necessary funding for the interior as well as the exterior building needs at JBN for the 2013-14 school year. The photos of the classrooms at JBN that we provided should have provided each of you ample information to responsibly allocate money obtained from the taxpayers for the critical updates needed to the classrooms at JBN. Thank you again very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Any other person wishing to address the board? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to our consent agenda. Dr. Barshiger, approval of minutes.
We recommend to the Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular meeting on January 22nd, 2013, and the special meetings of February 9th, 2013, and January 22nd of 2013.
Personnel, Mr. Roman.
Good evening. We have a rather lengthy personnel agenda. I will try to go through it as expeditiously as possible. Under item 1, personnel resignation certified, ask that the board approve the resignation of Sarah Butler from her teaching position at J.B. Nelson effective the end of the school year. Item 2, employment certified, would ask that the board approve the employment of Linda Hathaway and Elizabeth Parisi in their teaching positions as recommended. Item 3, employment classified, would ask that the board approve the employment of Cindy Franson, Allison Schaefer, and Jonathan Schmidt as paraprofessionals. As Dr. Barshinger mentioned, item 4 is stricken. Item 5, job share proposal, would ask that the board approve the initial job share proposal of Kim Kakalis and Joan Webb as presented. Item 6, job share renewals. Would ask that the board approve the job share renewals of Bridget Parks and Jennifer Wiltshire, Carol Ottenreith and Jill Harmon, and Marcy Kuhn and Elise Velez as presented. Item 7, request for leave of absence revision. Would ask that the board approve the extension of Neil Fuchs' leave of absence. Item 8, request for leave of absence. Would ask that the board approve the leave of absence requests of Deborah Clark, Lindsay Felix Petrie, Jessica Shaw, and Kimberly Tabak. Item 9, return from leave of absence. Would ask that the board approve the returns from leave of absence of Monica Hubble and Holly Mui as presented at the conclusion of the school year. Item 10, exempt and administrative employee salaries, 2013-14. I recommend that the Board of Education approve the salaries listed below for exempt and administrative employees for the 2013-14 school year in the following categories. A, central office hourly employees. B, division coordinators with annual salaries. C, technology hourly employees. D, technology annual salaries contingent upon the completion of satisfactory performance reviews. And item E, administrative annual salaries. Item 11, employment, administrative employment. I recommend the board approve the employment of Steve Pierce, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, effective July 1st, 2013, at a salary of $130,000. And I think Steve is in the audience here. Do you want to stand up for a second, Steve? It's a welcoming group. All right, good deal.
Welcome.
Welcome to you, Steve. All right. Secondly, Joanne Smith. I recommend the board approve the employment, or rather the transfer of Joanne Smith to the position of Batavia High School principal, effective July 1st, 2013, salary of $127,000. Joanne, you get a chance to stand up too. I know you're dying to do that.
I am.
Okay. And thus, we conclude the personnel agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I could just point out to the board on the administrative salaries, there was a corrected handout correcting some calculation mistakes on my part. There were 4 highlighted salaries that were miscalculated. It doesn't affect any of the other information received other than I will take full credit for my technical lack of skills. Spreadsheet skills. And I can't read that far. Did we, you see, Greg, on item 2,
Yes.
I believe it's just a typo, but there was another name in your report.
Twice.
Oh, you just took you didn't put the right name there.
Never mind, we got it, Linda Hathaway. So,
Linda Hathaway and Elizabeth Parisi, right?
Right, and just say, under
There was just an
Elizabeth
error.
Percy, you say Linda Hathaway.
Oh, well, she does not have that conflict of identity. She is Elizabeth Parisi. Okay? Thanks.
thanks, Greg. And Greg.
Notes reflect that.
Yes.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Approval of routine financial matters, Dr. Vaughn.
The net payrolls in the amount of $1,207,584.42 for January 31st, 2013, and for February 15th, 2013, in the amount of $1,116,112.30 are included for your approval, and I recommend approval as presented. We also have a complete listing of the bills for your approval. Totals for this month are $2,099,552.88, and I recommend approval as presented.
Treasurer's report, Tony?
I recommend the Board of Education accept the Treasurer's report for the month of January 2013 as presented.
Closed session minutes, Dr. Bechamel.
Recommend approval of the closed session minutes and further recommend that those minutes remain closed from January 22nd, 2013.
FOIA, Tony.
This is a long one. On January 14th, the Board received a request from Tammy Sluice requesting A, the usage logs of the seclusion room at Hooverwood School, B, the logs of other seclusion rooms in use in the district, and C, logs of any and all seclusion rooms for the last year to be used as a comparison. On January 23rd, Patty Lackman requested the list of candidates who have filed for the upcoming school board election. On January 23rd, Tricia Lorenz requested grade distributions for honors biology. On January 25th, Carl Dinnerty requested June 2012 checks by account, readable receipt from Gammon Coach House for March 5th, 2012, and a receipt from the Westin Hotel as it relates to the April 5th, 2012 statement. On January 30th, the board received a request from Eric Sheltkoff requesting a list of candidates who filed for the upcoming board election. On February 4th, Charles Menchkaka requested the same. And on February 6th, the board received a request from Tashonda Schubert of RJB Properties requesting information and invoices from the district's current custodial janitorial vendor.
Thank you. Donations. Brad.
I would recommend the Board of Education approve the donations to Hoover Wood School, Alice Gustafson School, and Rotolo Middle School as presented.
Policy approvals. Dr. Barshinger.
A long list as well, and want to specify which are first readings and which are also asking for your approval. First reading and the approval of policy 2, section 2, number 150, committees. That is just updating of current practice, so we would ask your approval. Policy, section 5, policy 30, hiring practice and nepotism, is a second reading, and we would ask your approval this evening of that policy. Would recommend that you also conduct just a first reading of Board Policy Section 6, number 280, grading and promotion. I would recommend the Board of Education conduct a first reading of Board Policy Section 6, number 290, homework and grading. You do have a revised handout for this policy, as well as the 530 hiring. It was a handout in front of you. I would recommend a first reading and approval for Section 7, Policy 190 on student discipline. Conduct a first reading and approve Section 7, Policy 20, harassment. And finally, a first reading of the Section 9, new policy section, which is included information security, and that's a first reading only.
Okay. Technology storage area network and server purchase. Tony.
I recommend the Board of Education approve the purchase of a storage area network and servers from Sentinel Technologies at a total cost not to exceed $285,000.
And the RMS 1-to-1 Chromebook pilot.
I recommend the board approve the purchase of 100 Google Chromebooks from Formivo LLC at a total cost of $27,900.
The district internet service contract.
I recommend the board approve to renew the district internet service contract with ISI Communications for a 3-year term at a total cost of $32,940.
And the network firewall purchase.
I recommend the board approve the purchase of a network firewall from Heartland Business Systems for a total cost of $63,794.
And the district telephone service contract.
And I recommend the board approve to renew the district telephone services contract with Windstream Communications for a 3-year term at a total cost of $70,200.
The 10-year life safety survey contract. Dr. Mahan.
I recommend the Board of Education approve the contract with White & Company to complete the mandated 10-year life safety survey of our facilities for the sum of $93,980. We also recommend that we accept the optional scope of work to complete the indoor environmental comfort evaluation for the additional sum of $29,680.
And the disposal of surplus district property.
I recommend the Board of Education approve the disposal of surplus district property as presented.
And the Fox Valley Career Center joint agreement. Brad.
I would recommend the Board of Education accept the joint agreement between Batavia Public Schools and the Fox Valley Career Center as presented.
That concludes the item on the consent agenda. Any questions from board members or comments?
Could I ask about the optional scope of work for the indoor environmental comfort evaluation? Just explain exactly what that is and what it would be looking at.
I'll ask Pat Brown to come up to the podium. He's worked most closely with White & Company on this project.
So that portion of the work is going to provide us with analysis of the 360 classrooms throughout the district and give us a better picture of whether or not those classrooms are meeting our expectations for performance. Are they well lit, both natural light and synthetic light production? What's the amount of sound transmission in the classroom? What is the amount of sound transmission between classrooms? What is the thermal evaluation? Are the students and faculty comfortable in the classrooms? We'll compare all that data back to industry standards and be able to come up with a matrix that we can basically have a dashboard showing where we are meeting those expectations, and we'll be able to use that data in development of the capital improvement plan moving forward to have the greatest amount of impact of those dollars spent, ensuring that we're going back and resolving issues to make sure that the classrooms are optimal learning environments.
We need to do that at the high school,
Yes, we do.
since the high school has recently added on to why.
We have not, even with the large amount of additions that were put into that building and the remodeling that was done, there are still areas in that building that are older, pushing 20-plus years old in some areas. So we have not, in essence, touched everything in that building. And we do still have, for example, about a third of the building that is operating on those older T12 lights in the building. So those lights are less efficient. Those lights are also starting to dim as the bulbs are aging, things of that nature. So I think it is reasonable to say that we should study the high school as well to ensure that it's the environment that we think it is.
And am I correct? I think I remembered reading that the cost of these 10-year life survey and the other will be spread out over a couple of years.
That's correct. We don't have an obligation to file with the state until 2014. We intend to push that filing to the very end, probably in December of 2014, to give us time to complete the study and also to spread out the payments over the next couple of years. So the phase one portion, I don't remember, it's in the packet exactly what the allocation of what buildings will be studied, will be actually handled out of this year's fiscal budget using professional services fees, funds that we allocate, and then we'll do the same for next fiscal year as well. So breaking up the cost a little bit so it's not a single impact to one budget year.
And the cost of life safety, the 10-year study, is that like in the ballpark of what our cost was last time we did the 10-year study, or is it?
I would actually have to research what we paid in 2004. That was 2004 was the last time we did this work.
But you feel that the cost is in line with what?
A six-figure cost for this type of contract is not unheard of for a district our size.
Okay. Any other questions any board member has of anything on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I take a motion, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved. Okay, got it. Wait.
Hodge?
Yes.
Interlaw?
Yes.
Dremel? Yes. Blakely? Yes. That's it.
Okay. That passes.
Thank you.
Move down to the reports of the administration. The STAR program update. Christine.
Brad, you gonna start? Yeah.
Okay.
So last year, January, when we were talking about kindergarten programming with the district, we also identified a need to better serve a larger number of at-risk kindergarten students within our district. In the past, we had a wheel program which looked at early literacy skills. That program served 12 students district-wide, and we felt that our need for early intervention was much higher. The Board of Education then, in January, approved the at-risk programming for kindergarten students, and so began the journey of STAR. And tonight I'm joined by Christine Sheffert, our district literacy coordinator, and Cecilia Hoffman. She's one of our teachers. She teaches the STAR program at both J.B. Nelson School and also at Hoover Wood School, and she's a longtime Hoover Wood staff member as well. And really they're going to talk a little bit about their journey in developing this program. I have to say that I'm particularly proud of this at-risk program. I really feel that it meets the needs of our students where they're at. It's early intervention, which is going to have long-term dividends for our district in terms of improved performance for our students. We're serving many more students than we have in the past, and really I think the approach that they've taken is consistent with our district philosophy of making sure that we provide a quality core instruction, but then there are those students who also need that core plus more that intervention piece, and then core plus most. And that's really the journey and the philosophy that these teachers have used to develop this. I would like to also say that Jolie Kelm from Storm School and Aaron Colhagen have been team members here. They're not present tonight, but they've been team members in this process and really have worked to develop what I think is a very fine program. They're going to talk to you a little bit about that process in the program and the services that they're providing to these kindergarten students.
Good evening. It's nice to see everyone. STAR stands for Supporting Those at Risk. Here you'll see the names of the teachers that Brad already introduced. It's important. And I will get to our objectives. The STAR program objectives is really to provide targeted instruction to meet the individual needs of our students to help close that achievement gap. It is also, an objective is to provide differentiation in small group setting. And we also are working very hard to strengthen the partnerships with our parents of our students. The STAR program allows for our youngest learners to have as many learning opportunities as possible by providing more time in small group work on academic skills, by providing more time interacting with other children to work on social and emotional skills. And it also provides more opportunities for them to share orally, which helps strengthen their language skills. And it also allows for more hands-on practice for the development of their motor skills. The following assessments listed on the slide were used in the identification process of our STAR students. It's important to note that every single kindergartner across the district received the kindergartner screener and the ISL, which stands for Illinois Snapshot of Early Literacy Test, within the first 2 weeks of school. From there, the data was analyzed, and any student needing interventions were provided with interventions. After the interventions were completed, data was looked at, and evaluation of that, and then placement of the students into our STAR program happened. To help clarify that process, here you will see a flow chart with 4 of the 6 learning domains that I'm used to touching things, sorry. 4 of the 6 learning domains that our program was arranged around. Number 1 in the forefront is language. We found that in our research of looking at where our kids were developmentally and where we expected them to be at the end, language was a large area. Then next in hierarchy of need would be their social, emotional, school readiness domain, and then we looked at numeracy and fine motor issues. And you can see from each of the learning domains there was diagnostic assessments done and then interventions in place. And because early literacy skills was big in and of itself, it took its own flow chart here. But this is our last learning domain that the STAR program reinforces, and you can see what we're focusing on. And I know you have a copy of this in your presentation to make it easier for you to see. But it just clarifies the steps that we went through. Once the students were identified based on the data, parents were notified in person via phone calls, which were followed up by an invitation to a parent information night, where each of our STAR teachers presented an overview of the identification process to the parents. They discussed the curriculum objectives, and we also asked the parents to join us in a partnership to help support their students' learning journey here at Batavia Public Schools.
As you can see, lots of our learning opportunities for our Rising Star children are through small group activities. We are giving them the opportunities to interact with each other and with teacher-directed activities. Okay. Our STAR curriculum centers around 6 learning domains: language development, social and behavior skills, learning readiness, early literacy, early numeracy, and gross and fine motor development. These are intertwined throughout our day, every day. Language development is the top of the hierarchy. Without language development, research shows that we cannot proceed. It is a best practice indicator that language development is the primary cornerstone of school success in all young children. This is the first area that we intervened at, since it's the foundation of all learning, and it is woven into every aspect of our teaching. It is the largest component of our program, and we have various ways that we intertwine these. Our identification process indicated students have a need for instruction and practice of appropriate school behaviors. For many of our STAR students, kindergarten is their first experience in a structured school setting. So we work on a daily basis just learning how to be at school and what our expectations are for us at school. Our literacy block consists of whole and small group instruction, allowing us to meet the needs of all of our learners. These are some of the materials and the instructional practices that are being used in our program. Every day we are doing activities whole group and small group. Early numeracy is our focus is on number sense. We incorporate hands-on activities in whole and small group instruction. We know that developing number concepts is a basic component in order to build a hierarchy of learning in the number sense, in the early numeracy. Gross and fine motor development. We address fine motor development through teachers using guided processes. We do a lot of listening activities where they have to listen to cutting and gluing and creating projects. Many times STAR students need more activities in being able to listen to give them future success within the classroom. Our goal of our STAR student is to close the achievement gap. We are aiming for all of our STAR students to perform as well as their same age peer group on the spring ISO. Our district average for kindergarten is letter recognition 53.6% out of 54. Our letter sounds 25.2 out of 26. Developmental spelling, which is inverted spelling. You give them a word and they have to spell it from the sounds that they hear. 20.2% out of 27. And passage reading 11.2 out of 20. The goal of our program is to help close these gaps. And because they're small group, I can see the results already happening, and it's only February. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to work with these wonderful children.
Thank you. Any questions, board? Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the update.
I'm so sorry.
Beeper. Dr. Mahan.
Thank you, Brett. Good. Oh, got it on the first try. Sorry, I thought I was going to have to bring it around there. So tonight we wanted to bring you the final closure to this last round of our Batavia Educational Program Review that actually started back in 2011 and 12. We stretch out the time period this time because we wanted to more closely align with when we actually start implementing new programming recommendations. So this has been a 1.5 to 2 year process this time. And ultimately, the administration has come up with a consensus recommendation for our area that we think should be our priority for program improvements for next year. So quickly, I'll go through a process review and then get to the recommendation that we have for you. As you'll recall, this is the third round of the beeper process that we've gone through. This is a two-dimensional analysis. On one side, we're really looking at the effectiveness of our programs. Are our departments being efficient and effective in the resources that they have, and our instructional programs producing the type of achievement and effect on students that we expect from them. And then on the other side, we compare that to the cost and the types of resources that we put into these programs. So we look at the number of staff, the total cost of the salary and benefits, the materials and equipment that are required, and then we also subtract out any revenues that are there that specifically come in to support that program. This past time in the process, we had 26 specific areas that we looked at. One of our district administrators was assigned to facilitate each one of the teams, but then we invited employees throughout the district to come and talk with us about the objectives of these programs. This year we had at least 118. There was one team that didn't have all their members listed, so I don't have it completely accurate, but I got to 118 on the teams that I did have accurate info from. These teams sat down, they talked about what the objectives were, what activities they actually go through, and how they're going to measure what's happening within each of those teams. And then the financial side comes in. They were asked to identify what would happen at different funding levels of their program. The reports, they were each asked to submit to us a final report that talked about those outcomes and activities and the effectiveness of the program. They had 3 different funding scenarios. This year, it was a change to it. So they were asked to tell us what they would do if their funding was stable. Would they make any modifications, even with their current level of resources? We did ask what would happen if we had to reduce the funding by 10%. But this year, a change, we offered, what would you do if we were able to strategically invest 5% more? The one exception that we did was the teams for class size at elementary, middle school, and high school, and student services. We didn't ask them to consider a reduction anymore. We felt like our class sizes were already at a threshold that we didn't want to go any further on. So we asked them to, tell us if you would do anything different with our current resources. Tell us what would happen with a 5% increase, and then tell us what would happen if you got to the actual class size targets that we have in our contract with the Batavia Education Association. On student services, it was stable funding, a 5% increase, and then what would be considered, industry standard for caseloads. Where would that fall? Is that all the way to 5%? Is that slightly less, or is it more? Teams were asked to identify the best way to deliver their program. They finalized the reports near the end of last year, and we made some final revisions over the summer. And then the administration reviewed the individual reports during presentations in September of 2012. The administration then, we actually kind of modified our evaluation of this. Each of us individually ranked all of the programs that we heard and listened to based on our own individual thoughts about their effectiveness and cost. We then sat down at an administrative council meeting and actually looked at them collectively and had a big group conversation. We specifically looked at, is this a mandated program by some type of statute, federal, state, or through our local bargaining contracts? How closely does this align to our strategic goals? What do we perceive the impact on student achievement is? We had a rubric that we went through, and we came up with a different ranking based on the points assigned there. We combined them, and we're actually able to, we then sat down and said, here's the combined ranking. Are we comfortable with this? We made some last modifications, and we're able to talk to you now about where we see our recommendation for this year. So any questions in the process before I get to the part that most people are waiting to see? Okay. And I'm sure that view is perfect for everybody, so I will increase the, hopefully that is big enough, or I can go a little bigger. Go bigger? How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get that off of the screen. So what happened in our consensus discussions is that we did not feel like we wanted to target any specific areas for reduction or really put any areas above what we would consider stable funding right now. So what you will see in this is where the programs, the priority that we came to in our individual reports is the order you see here. But you will see the lowest level of funding for every area near the top of this report. So they're all the same color. In the middle, again, we felt like we had done our targeted areas where we felt we could actually still provide good service by reducing a specific area. So the administration is recommending that any further reductions be done across the board. However, we feel like we may be able to actually target some areas for improvement. So we have areas here in the middle that we are actually targeting for improvement going forward. So if the board feels that the funding in our next year's budget is at a level that we can add things back, here are the areas that the administration is recommending that we target. The rest of the teams do follow. We go all the way down to 78, 26 teams, and there were 3 funding levels each. And this report was included on the shared Google Drive that you should have had access to, and I apologize if there were technological glitches or not. But I think it might be most beneficial to talk specifically about the priority areas that we have identified. The first area that came up from the administration was curriculum and instruction. We felt like things are changing so quickly, and we've invested dollars in data warehouses in the past, but with the increased number of assessments and PARC coming online within the next few years, we thought the curriculum and instruction area was the first area that we would try to add resources to. In the report, it was the addition of a data coordinator. And I talk on a subsequent slide that what's actually listed in the reports should not be taken as a recommendation at this time. We'll be coming back to you in the next month with a really comprehensive list of where we believe we should target for program improvements. But right after the addition of some help in the curriculum and instruction area, it was the class sizes. And this is the 5% increase. It's not getting all the way to the targets that are in the contract. That was additional dollars that we felt we could use more effectively in other areas. But this is both a ratio of lowering the class sizes along with providing some classroom supports, whether it's through peer coaching, whether it's through other instructional supports that we can add there. What's happening in the classroom was the next area that we wanted to focus on. After that, it was administrative services, and this was primarily talking about the possible addition of some assistant principals at our elementary areas to help with the level of appraisal. As you've been presented with in the past, the new teacher evaluation model is much more intensive on both sides, both administrative and on what's asked of the teaching staff. And we're finding that the caseload, if you will, at the elementary level is the one area where we could see some good improvement. So that would be our next recommendation. Student services was the next, and this would have been some type of additional administrative support for the Early Childhood Center. In our discussions, we could see that also being a part of the administrative services there. So when we come back with a grand recommendation, those two could easily be combined. Finally, the last two areas was gifted education. The report suggested assessments to better track gifted growth. That's something we're considering. We're also considering some possible modifications at the middle school. So that's been in our discussion so far. And then finally, ELL and bilingual services, we would recommend, the report recommended increase in the materials for Spanish literacy in that program. So those are the areas that we have targeted. Quickly, I will go through the last couple of slides here. These BEPA reports, the individual reports, they were released as staff yesterday afternoon. We had there was a little bit of technological glitches we were going through yesterday morning, so we didn't get them out as quickly as we'd like. But we are committed to having them up on the public website by Thursday morning. We expect it'll probably be midday tomorrow when we can release these completely to the public. We always want to make sure that we keep in mind that when people are reading this, they should not take any of this for a final recommendation. These teams were asked to work only with their team. They did not need to evaluate what it would do to other areas of the district if we were to take their recommendations. And finally, none of the teams were ever recommending that we actually reduce their program and that would be an effective way of delivering instruction. For all 3 years, every time that someone has recommended a reduction, sorry, recommended is the wrong word. Every time they've discussed a reduction, it's always had the caveat that that is not what they believe would be the most effective way. So when you see the team member's name on the report, it's not that they are recommending any type of reduction to that program. They were simply completing that aspect of the task we put before them. And finally, the next steps for us. We will have these available for all staff and community. Obviously, we can recommend programming priorities, but the board will always have the final direction. We will be bringing a comprehensive recommendation to the board at the March meeting so that we can begin the final budget preparation as we get into the late spring and summer. Obviously, this list will be used to help craft that recommendation, but this closes this part of Beeper, but we're already about ready to start the next round of the Beeper reports. We'll ask the teams to start coming back together and looking at the data they said they were going to collect, find out where they hit or missed the mark, so that we can start this process over for future budget planning. So that is the presentation that I have for you tonight. I'd be happy to answer questions about the process and our recommendation. If you get into asking questions about the individual reports, I may have to look to some of my colleagues in the room, but many of them are represented here, so we should be able to get some things answered for you.
Okay, I'm willing to go and show my ignorance in front of the public. I get confused when I look at the form that shows the rankings, 1 through 78. But that's not the recommendations or the priorities that you're saying you're focused on. Am I reading that correct? I mean,
Well, it's both. Hold on one sec. Let me see which one that is.
because like number 5 on your list, right, is then I have all the.
Yes, let me go back and further explain this, because it has been a few years since we've had this up on the board.
I was on the board when this
There's a couple of we call them like the magic rules of Beeper ranking within our system, that we have to rank the lowest level of funding up near the top before we can add money to it with stable funding, before we can add a 5% increase to it.
Okay.
So in past years, you could have seen some of the stable funding or the 10% decreases, and then you'd see an additional class size before you even saw the lowest level of funding for the business office. Let's say I'll put my area up on the pedestal there. So in the past, the administration actually recommended giving some things an increase or keeping some things stable before we even funded a different area. So this year, that we didn't decide to do that. We decided collectively that we wanted everything to be funded across the board. So the first 26 areas that you see are the lowest level of funding for each of the teams in the priority that we thought they were. And so as we continue to go down, we eventually, at 27, is where we flip back into the second level of funding for each of those areas. We were able to do that this year because we don't project that we will need to make any further reductions in our budget. We discussed this at our board workshop, but we believe that we will be in a position to start returning some funds to programs that have been reduced in the past. So the administration felt comfortable keeping the lowest level of funding altogether, then the second level of funding altogether, and then we specifically targeted the top areas that we would like to add funds back to first.
Okay.
So that's why you see a big chunk of red, a big chunk of orange, and then a little bit of green. And then the subsequent page, I just blew up the section of green, because that's where we think we will have to have the discussions on program improvements.
So this ranking isn't where you're going. This is just sort of a technicality of how you did this process, and now we're looking at where you really want to go on this chart.
Yeah, it's actually both, because we believe that we will be able to do everything in the red and orange easily in next year's budget with the resources we believe will be available. So we've simply then highlighted what we think the decisions will be focused on when we bring back program improvements to you in March. So it's both of what you said.
We're going to cut 10%.
Exactly, not at all.
Okay. We're saying we can fund at that level. We can fund at that level at a minimum.
I feel very confident that we can fund all of the red and the orange levels.
Okay.
Our decision making will be, do we want to add money back to the areas in green? And if so, how much do you feel comfortable with?
So this is a question of how we're funding.
Yes.
Not taking from where we are and subtracting. We're saying we could absolutely.
Not at all. The budget builds itself down. If we were to take this as our budget, it would start at the bottom and then build its way up. We think we would have to stop somewhere around the green, which is why that's focused as the areas that we're going to have to talk about.
Okay.
So this is really, there could be really 3 charts of the 26 categories, right? The top priority of 1, and then the second priority, and then the third priority. Really.
I don't know if I would phrase it that way, but this year it has turned out that way. That our consensus was, let's keep everything grouped together and then target these specific areas. In previous years, the colors have been much more mixed up, and some things were even given an increase before we got to stable funding. So this year is much cleaner, and when you look at the final ranking sheet. because we're in a position that we don't have to make some of those reduction decisions.
My comment is simply, I mean, I've been through the beeper process before, it's still terribly confusing.
I appreciate that.
It's terribly confusing. None of this makes any sense to me. Okay, a 1 should be the first thing we would do versus the bottom of the thing being the first thing we were doing. So,
I think it's the word rank that threw me. I just assumed this is the first thing you're going to do, and my jaw dropped. I'm like, wait, why are we cutting all these programs?
Yeah, and that's why this year we tried to simply get to this part because we in the past we truly had to build things up so that you could see this is the areas that we're going to reduce first, and this is the area we want to maintain before we start reducing here. This year we're not in that position, so we've tried to get past the long, confusing ranking sheet to where we say these are the areas that we think we're going to need to talk about and discuss. So, every time that I come up and present this part where we get into the long sheet, it does take time to get through it. And yes, many of us in the administration that have gone through the process still have to be walked through the ranking sheet.
any other questions? Anyone? Questions?
I'm still trying to figure out what we don't understand.
Again, like I would say, I would focus on this area.
The area green.
Yes, focus on the area of green, because the rest, the administration is saying that we believe we should fund everything at its current level, and if we have additional funds, which I believe we do, we will focus on these green areas.
So, thank you.
And what about the areas underneath the green?
That would be the areas that if the board would still like to invest more funds back into our programs, that would be the order in which we would start to bring them on. So I will flip back to the confusing sheet. After the ELL and bilingual services, learning resource centers at a 5% increase would have been next.
That's just one total. It's one total.
The question was about buildings and grounds that we've talked about.
Yes.
With the board, and it's not as high on the list. I think you'd have to scroll down.
We did not consider capital projects. Those are one-time expenses that are not like full-time program improvements.
I got it.
Yeah, so capital projects we kind of removed from that, like roofing and everything. So yes, we
can discuss that.
Our final recommendation will be some of the buckets that we talked about capital projects and program improvements. This is the program improvement side.
It really
the instruction
seems unfair
side.
that you're making us learn in public.
It's our motto.
Always learning, always growing.
Okay. We just put it in action here, right for everyone. I'm good, I understand it, I think.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks, Dr. Ma.
Thank you all.
And we're moving, skipping C, that's been removed, and moving on to D, BHS athletic field. Mr. Brown.
You got that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'd like 6 for my table, huh?
No.
All right, good evening, everyone. In case you have trouble reading any of the comments that are, any of the captions that are on the screen in front of you, I did put a color printout for you to look at there. Tonight we are bringing to you a presentation of a collaborative effort that took place back in November when we started meeting with some of the stakeholders in the community to identify what the vision should be for eventually redeveloping the high school exterior athletic facilities. So we've partnered here with the sports boosters, with music buffs, and with Batavia Youth Football We've also talked with the coaches and the PE teachers and tried to include a number of different stakeholders to ensure that everybody's comments were heard, and we tried to capture as much of that information into this plan as possible. A couple things that are important to note about what we've done with this plan. First of all, we've made a tough decision here to say that we are going to stay within the footprint of Batavia High School's current campus. There has been talk for literally decades about whether or not we would ever move off that site and develop other areas to expand our athletic facilities. And that's really frozen us in place as to whether or not we ever do anything. And I think has led to some of the lack of repair that's happened on the site as a consequence. We also have worked, after making that hard decision, we've worked to make sure that we're doing our best to bring back all the programs that are kind of scattered throughout the district and allow the students to participate in programs on the high school campus. Examples of such, trying to find ways to bring soccer back from HC Storm so that they're able to practice and compete on their home campus. Same with things like the band. Instead of having them going off site on a regular basis to practice and things of that nature, doing our best to find a way, a solution for them to be on the campus and partaking in their extracurricular activities on the campus. With that said, this is the plan that we've worked on for a number of months now. We've gone through a process of presenting as many as 4 drawings at a time, soliciting comments from the stakeholders, narrowing it down to this final vision, and that's what this is. We don't have any identified revenue at this time. We don't have any identified timeline for construction. We're simply saying that this is the vision that we would recommend you adopt. And this will be folded into the capital improvement plan so that we can begin to start that process of thinking about how would we actually implement this given the other elements that exist in the capital improvement plan at this time. So going through the elements of the plan, I will start first with the football stadium. We're proposing in that plan that we would make that a synthetic surface, that we would increase the track running surface from 7 lanes to 8 lanes and also improve it, as it is a structure that's beginning to fail. We would make improvements to our concession area to improve circulation. We would also eventually replace the grandstand, which has work that needs to be done to it to bring it up to codes and also to increase seating capacity. You'll see that we're proposing that we increase that capacity up to about 2,500 people.
I'm sorry, where are we now? I can't remember what our stadium
I believe it's about 1,800.
1,800? Okay, thank you.
We also bring in portables on a regular basis. We actually rent a couple of different sets of portables in order to accommodate the crowds for our games. So by increasing that seating capacity, we would eliminate that regular expense of the rentals that we bring in. The improvement would also include updating the lighting on the stadium. Those are some older wooden poles that are constantly shifting, and also an outdated system. We could do more energy efficient lighting for the stadium itself. By putting the synthetic surface in place, that would increase the playability for us. That's probably the most important thing at this point for us. We are very strict about who and when people are allowed in the stadium itself on the grass, for the very obvious reason that a couple of bad practices happening after inclement weather, and we could have significant bald spots out in the middle of the field. And we're trying to maintain an area that is of a standard for our varsity athletics to participate on. Moving then from the football stadium to the west, staying in that top half, that north half of the site, we have the varsity baseball field. The varsity baseball field will essentially stay within the same footprint as it is currently. Going back to the football stadium, that stays the same for it. It does encroach a little bit back because of the addition of the additional track lane, but it's not very significant. We are staying within the footprints that were currently established. The varsity baseball field, we would make improvements to the field itself by putting in an irrigation system, which does not exist currently, and also putting in an underdrain system, which would, again, allow us to get athletes back out onto that field for use more regularly after inclement weather, particularly when you think of your spring type conditions. We're also looking to improve the backstops that are failing over there. If you look at them today, they're leaning in on themselves, and really a matter of time before we won't be able to compete on that field unless we put money into it. And also to make improvements to the dugouts, which are really starting to show signs of some significant age. As we take a step again further to the west from the varsity baseball field, you'll go to what is currently the sophomore softball field. We're proposing that that would become the new varsity baseball field. And I'll talk about the new location for the sophomore field in a minute. We would make probably the most notable change that we propose there is changing out the infield from the limestone screenings that are out there to a clay mix. And then we would make, again, improvements with updating dugouts, making fence repairs as needed, and cleaning up and making that a varsity level competition field. Taking a step to the north, you'll see that there's the parking structure that is there, and one of the most notable things is that we are proposing that the current maintenance facility be relocated. So we have included in the proposal and in the planning numbers that would be rebuilt somewhere else, not identified at this time, but we would like to remove that from the high school site given how tight the site is, and look at increasing the amount of parking that's out in that area. If you've ever attended a baseball or softball game in the springtime, you know just how tight it is in that area, and there are quite a few conflicts between getting patrons to the game to enjoy it, and then also still being able to operate as a maintenance facility, given that the crew is really still working at that time and needing access to the garage to deliver and pick up equipment into the late hours of the evening there. So moving down from the what is now the varsity softball field, you'll see the new sophomore baseball field. We will put in new backstops there. Obviously, this would be a completely reconstructed field because the orientation completely changes. We're not reusing anything that was existing from the current varsity baseball field. And we do show that in the outfield areas of that sophomore field, a couple of different striping patterns to show how we will still try and utilize the fields and rotate back and forth for both soccer and football practices or for band, whatever the need might be. Moving back to the east, back towards the high school, you will see that we are proposing a second synthetic field. This is a lit field. This will be striped for multi-use. It will have our sophomore softball team will be able to play there. We also will be striped for soccer competitions. We will be striped for football. We will have other markings in there for things like lacrosse, things of that nature. We will also have stands that will exist that both your athletics and your band will be able to use for observations so that they can make sure they have proper alignment on their fields. Probably the most noticeable thing that you'll see there is that not only is this a synthetic surface, but we are also proposing the elimination of the detention area. We're trying, again, with the compact site that we have, we're trying to regain that land and make it usable space for our students. So we would go underground with that detention. Similarly, we would go underground with detention underneath the football field for any of the runoff water that would come out of the stadium. So everything going to underground storage areas. And we have had conversations about how we would utilize that water to re-irrigate the grass areas that still do exist out there. So trying to be green in our thinking from the standpoint of making sure that we're not just sending that right down the river, trying to reuse that resource that's there. At the center of this development, you'll see that there is an area called the outdoor learning space. We envision this being multiple different uses for the high school campus when the weather is nice outside. It may be for literally an outdoor learning environment, similar to the one that was constructed over at Louise White. It may also be used for things like reorienting where the tents are set up for things like the corn boil. One of the small bubbles, and I'll see if I can't this one that's right over here, if you see that on the screen, those small, the small white rectangles that are up there represent actual size tents that we can rent in this area that we could use for things like the corn boil. We rather like this idea because it puts all the activity where people would be eating and you know, fellowship, things of that nature, happening at the center of the campus, and giving it a kind of a bird's eye view all the way around of all the different activities that are happening during the corn boil. So again, it's a great space for us to be able to utilize for different types of events. Talking about a couple of the other bubbles that are up on the screen here, one of which shows a proposed remodel to the current concession area. Going back to the stadium, you'll see that there is a multi-use plaza that is proposed there. And really what we're attempting to do is, because we would propose adding on the additional lane to the track, and the circulation is already so tight between the fence and the start of the grandstand bleachers, we're really looking to redistribute all that circulation to the backside so that you would actually literally enter the grandstands from the backside, climbing up through a portal. Also recirculating things like concessions and restroom use, so that all that's happening back at the plaza side and not creating that bottleneck that currently exists when you go to games. So plenty of room in that plaza area for that type of thing, and that's a little bit of what that concession remodel would do. The other thing, in addition to remodeling and changing where the concession and bathroom entrances are, we're also adding a little bit more storage out there. Obviously, by removing the maintenance shop from the site, we do have a little bit of need for storage on the site to store some of the basic supplies that we use, paint and some of the painters, and chalking, you know, things like that. It also gives us an opportunity to provide what is kind of a squad room. Basically, it's an area for athletes, or really anybody that's on the grounds, to be able to take cover in the event of inclement weather. So in some cases, it's enough of a distance to try and get back to the main building itself that this gives another great opportunity for you know, for those athletes to be able to take cover and you know, have that shelter for themselves. One of the other bubbles that's up there, the third one that's up there down here on the bottom, shows a proposal to potentially restart, basically start over with the concession building. So really, that one lends itself to allowing the best sight lines for everybody involved if we were to go that route. So it just shows that we have some options in how we might use that plaza throughout. Then as you look down here, we've also identified a couple of other site issues, particularly on the south side of the building, that we will look to address as part of this plan. So for example, we've made modifications at the high school to where people coming to watch your winter basketball games, things of that nature, are entering in and out of what is the new athletic main hall, which is the one that leads down to the field house and allows you to go in the doors to the backside of the gyms. With that, it's been brought to our attention that we're really not providing adequate ADA access. So we'll look to put a depressed curb in front of that opening to allow for better circulation. And then we'll also look to restripe in the coming years so that we redistribute some of the accessible parking down to that side. We have ample accessible parking we will not be adding, but we'll just be redistributing it across the site so that it provides for better access to the building. We've also are looking at some improvements along the main entrance to the building over by the offices there and by the cafeteria area, so that there's more seating areas, better areas for students to take advantage of nice weather days and enjoy the weather, whether it be on their lunch break or for classes to step outside and use some of those seating areas as well. So it concludes the plan.
And this is just information item, and is some very advanced planning work that we're doing so that we know where things will fit and what we have to do for long term. But any of the projects would go through the capital development planning process.
Do we have the ability to do all of these as piecemeal? So like we could redevelop a baseball field and know where it goes and maybe not do anything else at that time?
There are elements that we can do that with, yes. Not all the plan can be done that way because some things are dependent on others. But yes, we did certainly look at it from the standpoint of are there improvements that could be made and be done one piece at a time, so to speak. So yes.
If that like phased in, how many phases do you think you could reasonably do it in, or something of that nature?
Well, it depends. If we were to say that we were going at the entire project, the entire thing was a go, we would probably do that in 2 phases. So it'd be a multi-year construction. But again, we haven't even begun to talk the phasing. This is more about developing the vision for what we want to see out there.
Any other questions? Comments?
You said the maintenance shed was going to, do we have a location proposed for that, where we, any land or anywhere where we could put it, or?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
We're in the concept phase at this point.
Yeah.
And because we do have some necessary maintenance to do, and we've actually been holding back some donors for several years because we didn't have a master plan and we were afraid to do some major investment with some even donated dollars that we would come back 5 years later and have to pull out. So this is a long-range planning document that allows us to look at what those phases may be and actually now go back to our donors knowing we have some concepts of where things would be. So that's really what we're trying to put together in this document. And we know what the long-term desires are. And I really thank the committee for working quite a while and getting all the objectives put together and looking at what all the needs are. This took a lot of work and a lot of their meetings and participation of our stakeholder groups.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Great, thank you. Student ambassadors' comments. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Megan.
Okay, so boys basketball will be playing a regional game against Oswego tomorrow. It was supposed to be tonight, it was canceled because of the weather. So I believe 6 tomorrow at Batavia. The dance team's TDI state championship will be held on Sunday, March 3rd in Peoria. So it's a little bit of a ways, but we're going to turn on. And then it was kind of an easy day today because all activities were canceled after school. So we got a little bit of free night.
I would just like to say congratulations to all musical arts students and all their achievements. Congratulations to the Batavia accounting team for making it in the national competition. And congratulations to Ms. Smith for her new appointment as principal of Batavia High School.
Okay, great, thank you. Dr. Washinger, comments?
I'd like to follow with Megan and Nicholas with congratulations to our new candidates that are joining us. So we are very excited about that. Me in a different way than maybe the rest of you, but very good to see our internal candidates, but also the addition to the team as well. So I think that's a great place. It's also great to see our fine arts students and celebrate their successes in many different ways. And finally, I would remind the board and the public that next Tuesday, the board will have a special meeting, a workshop meeting on March 5th, and that's creeping up on me because it's actually March. And I see some of our candidates in the audience, and this would be a great workshop for board candidates. We've been putting together some work and some review on our policy, and although it may sound boring, it's really exciting. The policies and procedures that drive the Board of Education. Nicholas and Megan, I understand if you have other plans, but there's no action at this meeting, but it's truly a workshop meeting, and we have some great activities at the Policy Committee. I think it will truly show that the Policy Committee can be a lot of fun, don't you think, Dr.
I think so. I think so.
Going to break that tradition that we have there as well. But seriously, I would encourage anybody to attend. Policy is the major role of the Board of Education, so we're going to actually spend some time with it and have been talking about this for almost a year, so looking forward to it.
Okay.
President Pro Tem?
My comments, again, I'd like to congratulate Joanne Smith for becoming the new principal of Batavia High School. I look forward to your leadership there and the continued movement of our academic success of our students. and also the challenge of getting us out of AYP so that we are no longer there. And I know you could do that for us and work it. And also to Steve Pierce in the Human Resource. His resume is quite impressive. He turned around 2 middle schools in Schaumburg, from being the lowest achieving school to the highest achieving school in their school district. He has an extensive background in professional learning communities, which is what we are about at our high school, as well as we are about our entire school district. He presents nationally and works in that area. So he brings a great resource to our district with that and his work in our human resource department. I also like to, it's always exciting to see students come before the board and talk to us about their successes. The orchestra students that came today, just outstanding. We've always had an outstanding music program. It only, again, points to highlight the talented students that we have, but also the talented instructors we have that work with those students to help them achieve. So congratulations to them. And then my last comment is, J.B. Nelson, I heard what you had to say. I understand it. If you've been to board meetings and you hear me speak, I've always spoken of JB and what we need to do for the physical plant there. So we will continue. We will wait until March to see what the administration's recommendation is. But you can be assured I singly, as a board member, will be pushing to do something for JB, as I think that other board members here would also echo my thoughts. But thank you for coming and expressing your concern, and thank you for your emails, because that's what we need as a board, is the input from community to help us direct what we do here at the board level with administration. So that concludes my comment, and we'll turn to Tina Blakely if you have some comments.
I'm good. I was the last.
I know I wanted you to go first.
Thank you. I also want to thank Steve Pierce, who not here, but that's congratulations to him, and to Joanne, congratulations. Look forward to working with you and as a parent in the high school next year and also here. And again, just like what Dr. Hingelang said, it's awesome when we have the kids come and just share their successes. That always makes us very happy up here to see that. It was pretty wonderful to see their stuff. And again, just like what Dr. Hingelang said, we did read all the JB notes and the letters and the emails, and we discussed, put quite a bit of discussion into them. So you were heard, and we are doing our best to hopefully do something positive. So thank you for coming again today.
Yeah.
I won't echo what you guys said, but it's a good time. I'm excited about where we're going and what we're doing and the changes that we've made, and it went from being very scary to being very exciting now.
Okay. Thank you. And Greg?
Yeah, just to piggyback on the J.B. Nelson situation, and then with the approval of the 10-year life study and the indoor comfort evaluation, I was wondering, since that's a 2-year study, if we could, or 3 years, 2 year. If we could have J.B. Nelson as a priority or in that first year, so that we could see, begin to get an idea of where that stands. It is one of our older schools, I believe, in the district. And if we could make them a priority on that study, and so we could begin to get that feedback back faster, where that would be greatly appreciated. Another thing I'd like to actually thank and congratulate the Finance Committee and Chris, particularly you and your staff and your work with PMA Securities, Bob Lewis over there, I think it was Bob's name, and the work in refunding the $10 million, working on the $10 million refund of our building bonds, which will save the district over $1 million over the life of those bonds. It's something that I don't think needs to be pushed under the rug. I think it's something we should be proud of, the work that you did there, and that's what we're here for, to evaluate things. We happen to be in a financial situation where we could do something like that, and through your work we're able to save a great deal of money, and that's something that I think I'd like to see get the paper or something like that.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm done.
There will be no closed session, okay, and so a motion to adjourn, please. By Kathy, second by Hodge. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Yep, hold on. 1, 2, Hodge.
Yes.
Pendulum.
Yes.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned.